For 80 years, the world lived with a specific version of Japan as a peaceful giant of Asia. After the total devastation of 1945, Japan did not lose a war. After the war, Japan agreed it would never go to war again and would only use force to protect itself. Because of a rule written by the US for decades, this arrangement worked perfectly as Japan transformed into a global economic powerhouse and a cultural titan, effectively trading its samurai swords for silicon chips. However, by early 2026, the foundation of that post-war peace has not just cracked, it has been completely dismantled. The COVID-19 pandemic served as a catalyst for a global rise of the right. And Japan, sitting in the most dangerous neighborhood on earth, has finally decided it can no longer outsource its safety. The era of the sleeping elephant is over, which was replaced by a nation that has rediscovered its resolve and is now moving with a speed that has left its neighbor, particularly China, in a state of strategic panic. On February 8, 2026, the people of Japan walked through the polls in a high stakes snap election that determined the nation's trajectory for the next century. Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, Japan's first female leader and a staunch conservative, sought a ringing mandate to break the pacifist rule book. The result was a political earthquake. Takaichi's Liberal Democratic Party (LDP) secured a historic 316 out of 465 seats in the lower house, and alongside her coalition partner, the Japan Innovation Party, the ruling bloc reached a staggering 352 seats. This two-thirds of supermajority is the largest in post-war history, giving Takaichi the legislative power to propose the unthinkable, a formal amendment to Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution to recognize the military as a legitimate national force. The financial market signaled their approval instantly, with the Nikkei 2225 surging past the 56,000 mark as global investor, bet on a new era of Japanese stability and industrial strength. Sanae Takaichi herself represents a profound departure from the typical constance-driven Japanese politician. Often compared to Margaret Thatcher, Japan's Iron Lady has connected with a younger generation that is tired of being bullied by North Korean missiles and Chinese maritime incursion. Her mindset is rooted in cold realism. She believes no nation will come to the aid of a country that lacks the resolve to defend itself. Her popularity, which will hovers near 70% of stems from her work philosophy and a bluntness regarding Japan's security, she has entered the policy of strategic ambiguity by declaring that a Chinese attack on Taiwan would constitute an existential crisis for Japan, legally triggering a military response. By setting this firm red line, she has created a credible deterrent that forced Beijing to reconsider the cost of any regional aggression. This shift has created a two-front trap for China. That is arguably the best geopolitical news India has received in decades. For years, China operated on a divide and rule strategy, squeezing India at the Himalayan borders while simultaneously harassing Japan in the East China Sea. China relied on its enemies being disconnected and passive. Takaichi has flipped the script. By rearming Japan and hiking the defense budget towards 5% of GDP, she has forced China to split its military focus. If Beijing moves pieces towards the Indian border in the west, it now leaves its wealthy eastern coastline exposed to an aggressive Japanese navy in the east. China is no longer the sole bully of the neighborhood. It is now being cornered by two of the most powerful democracies in Asia, working in tandem. The synergy between New Delhi and Tokyo has reached a fever pitch under the Takaichi-Modi partnership. Prime Minister Modi was among the first to congratulate Takaichi on her landmark victory, reaffirming a special strategic and global partnership that serves as a bedrock of regional stability. The formula is revolutionary. Japanese high-end technology such as cell sensors, robotics, and advanced missile systems, combined with Indian large-scale manufacturing and battle-hardened military, in 2026, the two nations are moving beyond simple trade towards joint defense co-protection, specifically focused on long-range standoff missile and underwater surveillance. Because China is busy watching Japan in the Pacific, they have fewer ships to send to India's backyard. This gives India time and space to strengthen its own border. Internally, Takaichi is cleaning house with the same route and she shows abroad. She has implemented the world's strictest and anti-espionage laws to purge foreign influence from Japan's technology sectors and universities. Simultaneously, her government is launching the Shield system, synchronized hybrid and integrated and enhanced littoral defense. This 850 million project creates an asymmetric wall of unmanned aerial and surface and underwater drones, making an amphibious invasion of the Japanese island virtually impossible. Japan is no longer just buying American hardware. It is leapfrogging the world in AI integrated autonomous warfare. This technological surge is coupled with a strict stance on national sovereignty, including immigration curbs and deportation for those who do not respect Japanese law, ensuring the nations remain unified as its project power. This massive internal reorganization is not merely about defensive hardware. It is about reclaiming the Japanese spirit of self-reliance. For years, Japanese companies were mostly just fixing and cleaning American equipments. Now, Takeshi is pushing them to start designing and building their own high-tech weapons from scratch. Under the 2026 budget, iconic Japanese firms like Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and Kawasaki are once again at the forefront of global military innovation. The government's move to accelerate the deployment of the upgraded Type 12 surface to the ship missiles, now capable of striking targets over 1,000 kilometers away, signals that Japan has moved from a defensive shield to an offensive spear. This change in equipment mirrors a deeper change in the Japanese physique. For the first time in generation, the nation is not asking what its allies can do for its security, but is declaring what it will do to secure its own future. The economic repercussion of this remilitarization are being felt for beyond the defense sector. Takaichi's strong Japan agenda includes an aggressive industrial policy that seeks to decouple Japan's critical supply chain from China. By offering massive subsidies for semiconductor manufacturing and high-tech research, she is turning Japan into a fortress of innovation once more. This economic nationalism, while controversial to some globalist economists, have revitalized the Japanese heartland, bringing high-paying jobs back to rural prefectures that had seen decades of decline. For the Japanese voters, the Takeshi era isn't just about guns and missiles. It is about a return to the era of Japan as number one, where national strength and economic prosperity were two sides of the same coin. Socially, the transformation is equally profound. Japan has long been viewed as monolithic, conservative society, but under Takaichi, a new brand of civic nationalism has taken root. It is a pride that transcends age, as seen in the massive amount of young voters during the February snap election. These voters sees Takaichi as the only leader capable of protecting their way of life in an era of North Korean nuclear provocation and Russian maritime aggression in the north. The government's uncompromising stand on cultural integrity, enforcing stricter deportation rules for those who violated social norms, is viewed not as exclusion, but as the preservation of the very social harmony that makes Japan unique. This sense of unity is what Takeshi called the invisible armor of the nation, a social cohesion that makes it resilient to the hybrid warfare and misinformation campaign that have fractured many Western democracies. The global reaction to this new Japan has been a mixture of shock and strategic realignment, while Beijing denounces the sinister remilitarization of its neighbor. Washington and New Delhi have embraced the shift. The Biden Trump transition era in the US has led to a more transactional view of alliances, and Japan's decisions to foot the bill for its own security is seen as a welcome relief in Washington. For India, this is a moment of strategic convergence. The shared vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific is no longer just a diplomatic slogan. It is being backed by a combined naval and industrial power that effectively sandwiches China. As Japanese warships conduct more frequent port calls in the Indian Ocean, the message is clear. The Indo-Pacific is not a Chinese lake, and the democratic power of the region are finally standing there. This monumental shift is being driven by a profound change in the Japanese corporate physique. Or for decades, Japan industrial titans were hesitant to lean into the defense sector, fearing public backlash or international stigma. Today, the stigma has evaporated. Under Takaichi's direct encouragement, giants like Mitsubishi and Kawasaki have transitioned from being passive maintainers to active innovators. This is best exemplified by the Global Compact Air program. where Japan is co-developing a sixth generation fighter jet with the UK and Italy. This isn't just about building a plane, it's about Japan's establishing itself as a tier one aerospace power, independent of the usual American export restrictions by owning the intellectual property of its own defense platform. Japan gains the sovereignty of choice, the ability to decide who it supports and how it fights, without needing a green light from Washington. Furthermore, the best news for the Indo-Pacific is the rapid de-risking of supply chain. Takaichi government has pioneered a model of economic security that India is now studying closely. By creating a multi-million dollar fund to help to help Japanese companies move production out of China and into friendly nations like India and Vietnam. She's effectively starving the Chinese military industrial complex of the capital its need to maintain its space. The friend soaring is a critical blow to Beijing influence. As Japanese practice rise in India's states like Tamil Nadu and Gujarat, the bond between the two nations is being forged in steel and silicon for beyond mere military exercise. The mindset of the Japanese people has undergone a permanent transformation. The old era of pacifist shame has been replaced by a newfound national pride. The public is no longer asking why they should fight. They are asking how they can ensure they never have to. A majority now supports constitutional revision because they see it as the only way to avoid becoming a vassal state in an increasingly ruthless world. Takaichi has tapped into its collective desire for strength, turning a stagnant, aging nation into a focused, high-tech fortress. This physiological shift is perhaps more dangerous to Beijing than the missiles themselves. A Japan that is no longer afraid of its own power is a Japan that can no longer be intimidated. As the sun rises on this new Japan in 2026, the geopolitical map of Asia has been fundamentally redrawn. The 20th century world order, defined by Japanese passivity and American oversight, is officially dead. In its place is a proactive, armed, and sovereign Japan that views India as its most natural ally. For the first time since the end of the Cold War, the dragon faces a united front of democratic powers that have the technological and military depth to match it move forward. The sleeping elephant of Asia is not only awake, it is armed, it is resolute, and it is no longer asking for permission to leave. For India and its partner, this is the dawn of a more balanced, secure, and multipolar continent where the rising sun once again commands respect on its own terms. Thank you, guys.